Hi, my name is Scott Diussa, and this is the Photo Breakdown.
Photo Breakdown is a podcast where I talk with a photographer sharing the story of a specific photograph, technique, or business win. I'm your host, Scott Weidenkivowitz, and this is the Photo Breakdown. Let's break it down. Welcome to the Photo Breakdown. I'm sitting down with Scott Diussa to talk about a really cool photo for multiple reasons. For those who have followed me for some time, you know that I still am technically a musician as well as a photographer. And the photo we're looking at today, I'm going to be talking about today, is in the music realm. And it's also a very vibrant photo, high contrast, beautifully lit. So we're gonna dig into it. But before we do, hello, Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Oh boy, it's not too often that we get to do that on a podcast with two Scotts.
Yeah, Scott with Scott.
But
It's great.
yeah. So I just as a related note, so I'm part of this group of photo friends that pre-pandemic we would get together once a year and travel somewhere and spend like a few days to a week photographing wherever we go. And on that trip, there was three Scott, and one of them, so three people named Scott, including myself, and then one person not named Scott, but he's actually Scottish. So there was 3.5 Scott. So, and it also got very confusing when we were like sitting down for lunch or whatever. And, everybody turns around when your name is called.
Yeah, really.
Oh boy.
I bet.
So let's start with an icebreaker. Let's see. I got a list I'm going to pick from. Let's see. If you could give advice to your 16-year-old self, what would it be?
Practice your guitar more.
Oh,
Always.
That's a good one.
I think of that all the time because I started playing when I was 15 years old. I took guitar lessons for 4 years during high school. And although I really am happy with pretty much where I am with that now, I wish I had just really just dug in deeper, and been one of those crazy like 8-hour a day kind of people. I still, even though I can play today and I'm happy and it's fun, but I would tell my 16-year-old self, practice your guitar more. I'm going to leave any girl thing out of that, but I'll go with the guitar one.
Awesome. I always thought that learn piano better would be mine in the music topic for sure. It's one of those instruments that really you go to somebody's house and they have a piano, you can just sit down. Not everybody has it's not often that a guitar is sitting out when you go to a friend's house.
You're right.
So my brother-in-law just bought a house not too long ago, and he inherited a piano that came with the house. They didn't want to take it with them.
Wow.
And you sit down and you're like, what should I play? Well, you know what? I can play piano, but I'm not good enough to just play something out of the hat, So it's one of those things. But
yeah.
Anyway,
I know what you mean. Actually, learning the piano would have been a good one to do when I was 16 as well. But that wasn't the cool thing. You had to grow your hair long and play guitar and be in a band and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So my next question is, what are you proudest of?
What am I proudest of? Oh God, that's a big question. But if I were to just put it simply, what I'm proudest of is the ability to actually teach people things, whether it be I used to teach guitar lessons. I teach photography now as, for a living. I teach classes. I teach a lot. And my mother was a teacher, my sister's a teacher, and it's just sort of ingrained in me. And it's not something that just anybody can do. Every job that I ever had, my boss would always say, hey, can you train so-and-so on how to do this? And, because they couldn't and I could. And it just kind of found me. That was not my goal in life to be a teacher, but you know what? I really enjoy it. And so I'm kind of proudest of the fact that I can stand in front of a group of people. I can be on a podcast like this. I can be virtually on a video class, and I could just, I get the point across and I want to have fun with it. So I think that
awesome.
Simple.
Yeah. I love it. It's one, being able to teach someone new to photography, someone that has been in photography but trying to learn more. It's definitely a nice feeling when you walk away and you can see that the goal has been accomplished, and
Yeah.
they've, even if it's one little nugget that they walk away from, it's a good feeling.
Oh, it's the best when someone says, "Thank you, I learned so much." Like when
Yes.
I would teach classes in person, you could see it on their faces. Now I teach to a camera lens that's shooting video and out virtually, but in the chat
Right.
at the end of the program, when people are saying, "Thank you so much, that was wonderful," I take that for real. I mean, people can say whatever they want to online these days, and people say, "Thank you, that was great." So that makes me really very happy. It's very rewarding, and it's kind of like an adrenaline rush afterwards, and it's that's the best part of all of it.
Yeah. Before we dive in, this episode is sponsored by my lead generation course for photographers called More Leads, More Clients. Yes, if you would like to increase the leads you're generating on your photography site, you can use the strategies I teach in my course. Access it at scottwyden.com/leads. Let's break down the photo. We are looking at a beautiful yellow guitar, a beautiful yellow guitar, and it's on this pitch black background. Now, this photo is on your, so again, for everybody listening, please be sure to go to the show notes, and we will be linking to this photo on Scott's Instagram so you can check it out. What is beautiful about this as well is that you actually use the Instagram carousel feature. So please be sure you swipe or click over to the other photos in the carousel, because Scott includes behind the scenes photos of exactly how he photographed this photo that we're talking about. So first, what is this guitar that you photographed?
Okay, so this guitar has got an interesting little story behind it. This was never one of my main guitars when I was playing. I don't have that many. I have like 7 guitars. This has always been my wife calls it the ugliest guitar that I have, because it's actually fluorescent yellow, and it's a throwback to the 80s, like completely, which was my heyday for playing guitar. So it's a total shredder. It's a Kramer guitar, but it's not the stock Kramer guitar. So any guitar players out there, you know, oh wow, he's got a vintage Kramer from the 80s. Well, this one is fluorescent yellow, and I never expected it to photograph this well. And I look at this picture and I'm like kind of mesmerized by the color. It's really close to the original, but photography just doesn't get that fluorescent part out of it. So this
Right.
looks like yellow, but it's
Yeah.
really, I'm 20 years ago, this was an ugly guitar. Now all of a sudden, it's like back in style. So the quick story behind this is I was teaching guitar lessons at a music store in Waldwick, New Jersey called SG Music. So because I know you're
Mm.
from Jersey, and if there's any
Yep.
Jersey people here, you might know SG Music. I was teaching guitar lessons there, and I was with the owner of the store, and this kid comes walking in, and he's got this guitar in his hand, and it's busted in half. And he goes, "Oh man, I dropped my brother's guitar down the stairs and I busted the neck in half. I need to buy him a new guitar. What do you have?" And so this kid had to buy his brother a new guitar that day. So I was looking at it and I'm thinking, you know what? Just a few days earlier than that, I actually went to the Kramer factory in Neptune, New Jersey, it was. And I bought some spare parts, and I bought this Kramer American neck. And I thought, oh, this neck is beautiful. I'm going to make a guitar out of this. So I said, we took the neck off, the busted neck off, and I said, I'm going to see if this thing fits. And I said, hey, listen, I'll buy the guitar for parts from you. How much you want for it? "Oh, I don't know. How about like $60?" And I said, you got it. So I gave him 60 bucks. And I went home. The neck fit beautifully. And
Mm.
it actually, I mean, it plays incredible. It's still a little screwed up on the electronics part and everything, but it plays great. And I love this guitar. And at one time, I actually tried to sell this thing, like back in, oh, I don't know, the early 2000s, when this was the ugliest guitar in the world. I tried to sell it at a garage sale for 60 bucks, and no one wanted it. And I am so happy that no one wanted it, because I just kept it. It was stayed in a case forever. And now I live in Nashville, Tennessee area now, and I have my studio room, which if you float through my Instagram, you'll see it. And I hang it up on my wall. It's wall decoration, basically. So recently I started getting a little creative with photography, and I shot a lot of my guitars, but this was the last one I did. And it actually turned out to be my favorite. It just photographs really well.
Yeah. So in the behind the scenes photos, it looks more fluorescent than it does in the final photo.
Kind
Uh,
of, I guess.
it's just the magic of lighting. It brought down the fluorescent. aspect of it.
It always does. You know, it's kind of weird. Fluorescent colors are really hard to get right in photography. But yeah, actually, I guess my iPhone behind the scenes photos, I guess iPhones know fluorescent colors better than a Sony. So who knows?
Yeah.
But it still made a really cool image in a very small
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. So let's talk about the lighting aspect. Well, first of all, before we do that, before we dive into the lighting, the guitar is actually up on a slant. Now in the behind the scenes photo, you can actually see how you did it. But so did you light it a certain way so that the feet from the stand are just too dark to notice, or did you Photoshop that?
Actually, one, I didn't touch this with Photoshop at all. I only processed it a little
Interesting.
bit in Lightroom. I'm not a huge Photoshop person. I know enough to
Hmm.
make me stupid in Photoshop. But
Right there with you.
Lightroom, I'm okay. So I might use a little bit of like little bit of a brush and just take the exposure down. But
Mhm.
yeah, this stand that I have doesn't have a back to it, so I was able to lay the guitar down on its side, and I actually propped it up on the feet of the stand so they would fall into shadow more.
Mm.
And because either that or I had to recreate part of the guitar, so it was teetering gently on there. I walked really slowly in my room because this thing would have fallen off in a heartbeat.
You
And
know, you can tell now if you look at the behind the scenes photo, you can see that it's like just on the edge
yes,
where instead of where how you would normally sit a guitar in there, it like straddled.
it is absolutely. But the best part
Yeah.
is what I was doing is, and I'll talk about the lighting in a second. I was moving the lights so one, the guitar would look good, but two, the stand went almost completely into shadow. And then all I did was just kind of do a little bit of a vignette around it to take out any of the extra that you might see a little hint of where the
Mm.
stand is, and just black it out. And I was really surprised that I could actually really get it like almost perfect black. I mean, there's probably a
Yeah.
bunch more touch ups I could do to this picture, but this was done, processed, and up on Instagram within minutes. I don't labor over images, and I just like to get it right in the camera. That's my
Yeah,
thing.
this is something that I could see in a a catalog for a guitar.
Yeah,
Really. I mean, it sells the guitar.
it does. It does in a sense. And I posted this on a Kramer fan page on
Mhm.
Facebook, and oh, it got hundreds and hundreds of likes and questions and stuff. And somebody was asking me, "How did you shoot that?" So I hope that person that asked me that is listening to this, because I actually wrote him back a pretty detailed description of how I did it. But it wasn't any sort of Photoshop magic. This is like 95% of the exact image when I shot it, and then I just did a couple touch ups and processed it to give it a little pop.
That's the way to do it. And that's where as we transition into the lighting discussion, this is exactly where lighting comes in handy because you get the lighting right, you've got to do a lot less afterwards.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
it's more fun, in my opinion. Getting the lighting right is way more fun than killing yourself in Photoshop.
Well, the creative process on this. So, like, I one day I just okay. So, well, let me back up here. I'll start talking
Mhm.
about how like what I was using and stuff. The lighting is something. It's not flash. It's not a strobes or anything like that. The lighting is actually LED lighting,
Mhm.
and I got this thing called specular, and it's by a company called Spiffy Gear, and it's
Yep.
actually sort of meant for the video industry. But I'm like, I mean, my subject's not moving. I could shoot whatever exposure I want. And it was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like a 60th of a second. It really wasn't that low. But so I got these specular lights from Spiffy Gear, if you guys want to look that up. But they're basically what they are is like LED bars, and you could put them together in certain ways, and then you can connect them together to make like a 3 light setup, which is actually what I did with this. So I had this lighting system, and I'm like, you know what? I need to be creative today. And I'm like, okay, so I photographed my bass guitar first, and I did a real kind of close up. And if you look through my Instagram, you'll see all these pictures. And then I photographed my blue Charvel guitar, and then I'm like, okay, this is looking really cool. And then I photographed my natural wood carving guitar, and then I picked out this yellow Kramer, and this is the one that made me excited. I'm like, okay, now I'm getting there. So it took like 4 guitars in for the creativity to happen, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to perfect the process, see the lighting, get the composition right. And it was exciting because you could just move these lights, and I'm watching the what I was doing is I was tethered to the computer, and I was watching on my monitor in my studio here. And I say studio, this is my office music room photography, everything. It's just a room in my house. And so I'm looking at the live view from the camera on my monitor. I was using a program called Smart Shooter 4, and I was tethered like with a, an orange tether tools
Tools,
cable.
yeah.
Yeah, straight
Yep.
into it. So I'm looking at the live view, and I was able to actually move the lights, because if you look at the guitar as I'm talking to you about it right now, there's some highlights on the back of it. The back of the
Mhm.
guitar is lit, and underneath the neck of the guitar is lit. And I was
Yep.
able to compose and move the lights so the reflection of the lights was just where I wanted it to be. Because the first couple images, I'm like, oh, that's a big hot spot there. And oh, that's not really good there. And oh, I could see the stand there. So I
Right.
started moving the lights around. And with live view on, I could just see exactly what they're going to look like before I take the picture. And so instead of using strobes and having to shoot the picture, move the light, shoot the picture, move the light, I was actually doing everything in real time live, tethered to my computer with live view on. So it made the process really easy, which was really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the tether tool system too, is just
Yeah.
good quality long cables that can go where you need them, and just having the nice tethering situation, whether you're going into Lightroom or whatever software, is
Hmm.
just a really nice thing. I do it whenever I need to. I
Yeah.
do it, but those cables come in real handy for a variety of things. Yeah, and the specular lights from Spiffy, the fact that they're short, narrow LED lights, I think is perfect for the product, the objects that you're photographing, whether it's guitars, you've got violin in your on your
Yep.
Instagram. Those are perfect because they're not too big. They're not these giant light sources you need to worry about, flagging or whatever. They're very specific of where the light goes.
And the best part is you can actually add them together so they make a larger light source, or you
Right,
can
right.
stretch them out. Like I had like two end to end in front of the guitar. I had a couple end to end underneath the back. If you look in the behind the scenes in the third picture, behind, like, this was sitting on like a Pelican case with a black piece of plastic over it. And I put them on the ground pointing up. So that's the light that's actually highlighting the underneath side of the neck and the headstock. And then in like right next to the camera, I had one bar lighting the the basically the side of the guitar where the strap goes. And because if I take that out, that would have fallen into shadow. So I had a three light setup. I had the front of the guitar, the side of the guitar, and underneath the guitar for the neck. And that's where it all came together. I'm like, oh, now you can see it. And the background is just one of those pop up Westcott, you know, simple backdrops for like headshots and stuff.
I think they call them the
Yeah,
X backdrops or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah. The X drop.
Yeah. X drop.
X
Yeah.
drop. Yeah, I have one of those. So that was just sitting in the background. So if you look in the behind the scenes picture, you can see that backdrop.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was bright in the room, but those specular lights were really bright. So I was able to tailor the exposure to just the guitar itself and not have anything else really show up. So the backdrop actually did go black in the picture.
Interesting. So you leave the room light on. You don't turn it off and just
I turned it off, but it didn't make much of a difference because I got two
okay.
bright windows in this room and
Oh,
daylight
okay.
was just pouring in. So it wasn't like I was shooting in the dark.
Right,
So
right.
I just used the specular light. The power of those lights are actually, those LED lights are really, really
Yeah,
powerful, and they're very
yeah.
much flicker free, which is awesome. So that you don't get like bands in your images from LEDs like a lot of them
Right.
do, and you also don't
Yeah.
get exposure differences between pictures, because that's going to
Yep.
lead me to my next point in this whole thing. You can't get this image the way I shot it in one single frame. Okay,
Interesting.
because even if I stop the lens down, this was with a Sony A7R4 and a 24 to 105 lens. Okay, and I was back all the way at 105 for this to cut the amount of background down to just the guitar, so I didn't have any spillover. And also, it didn't have enough depth of field at like f22 to be able to get the whole guitar in focus. So what I was doing is in the
So you
smart,
you
what's
had a focus stack.
I did. So what I
Okay.
did was I actually brought the exposure back down. I don't know, it was probably f 5.6 or something like that. So I had a decent shutter speed just in case something moved, which nothing was moving.
Mhm.
But so what I did was I focused on that strap button on the end of the guitar, and then I used the Smart Shooter 4 software to actually do a script called focus stacking. So it actually shot, I believe I remember I wrote 27 images this one took. And it was in a medium distance from near to far. And that's the way Smart Shooter works. It works in like small, medium, and large increments. This one was perfect for like the medium increment. And so I focused on the button on the guitar, and then I just ran the script, and it just started shooting pictures and moving the focus point all the way down the neck of the guitar. Now, I had it set for like 40 images, but I didn't need that many because in Smart Shooter, I used what's called a quick loop. And I put the little quick loop down on the tip of the headstock of the guitar. And I said, once that's in focus and starts to go out of focus because it went past there, I shut it down because I don't want anything else in focus, especially if it started to focus on the backdrop itself. You might see some texture. So I stopped the focus script after I saw the tip of the headstock of the guitar go in and out of focus in Smart Shooter, and I stopped the script right there. So that happened when I hit 27 images. Now here's where the magic part comes in. Smart Shooter doesn't compile the stack. Just like cameras these days that have a focus stacking ability only shoot the images. They don't compile it. So you need a piece of software to do that. I've done it in both Photoshop and a program called Helicon Focus. Photoshop is one, not very good at it, and it's a real pain in the neck to do. Helicon Focus does this thing automatically. So get this. So here's where I get kind of techie geeky on this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So Smart Shooter was shooting the focus stack into a folder called a watch folder. Helicon Focus is watching the watch folder, and it's programmed to take the newest set of images and put them together, stack them together, and give you one sharp picture. Now, how does it know to do this? It actually has a setting in there. So it's watching this folder and it waits. It sees new images coming in. And when it stops, it waits an amount of time. I have it set to like 15 seconds. So after 15 seconds, it doesn't see any more images coming in. Then it picks the last set of images that just came in, stacks them together, and spits out a picture for you, and you get everything in focus. It's the coolest workflow in the world. So I didn't have to manually go into Helicon Focus, select all the images, focus stack it. I had it set up to do this watch folder, and Smart Shooter, run the script, let it go, watch it all, stop it when I needed to. Helicon Focus picks it up, stacks them all together, spits out an image. I bring it into Lightroom, do a couple touch-ups, and I'm done.
That's fantastic. That definitely makes the workflow way simpler than what it could have been.
Yeah, when I started getting into this, and I'm like, oh, this was too easy on one guitar, so I got to shoot another one. Now I got to shoot another one. Now I got to do my violin, and not that I can play the violin, but I have one, and I want to shoot the violin. I shot my acoustic guitar, which I didn't post, and I just started shooting like everything because one, it was set up, and two, it was working so great. I didn't want to waste the opportunity.
Regarding the violin,
yeah.
So we were talking before we started recording that we have a lot in common. I also own a violin and do not know how to play it.
A friend of mine gave it to me after a trip to Ireland when I said, I want to learn how to do that. And I started trying to do some video lessons, and it sounds like cats screaming. So it's wall decoration at the moment, but I live in Nashville now. I think there might be a fiddle teacher.
Probably.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, mine came from an uncle who passed. It was in his house when we were cleaning it up, and it turns out that it was a pre-World War II violin.
Ooh, wow.
It's super busted up. I even tried getting it restrung, and it won't. Yeah. So, but I'm not using it. It's in the case. It's staying. I
say just photograph it.
Yeah. I would if I was gonna do that, I'd want to clean it up a little bit, but I don't know.
Speaking of that, oh my gosh, I had no idea how dirty all my stuff was until I started shooting these, and I'm like, oh man, now I got to go find cleaning solution and a rag and everything and start. But all my instruments needed to be cleaned anyway. But man, I tell you, focus stacking shows everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're talking a shiny surface. You can have fingerprints. You're gonna have pick scratches all over it.
Oh goodness, yeah. There's a couple small, little, tiny dings on this yellow guitar that bother me, and I touched one or two of them out just so it wasn't a distraction. But yeah, so it was really cool. But it was just a creative, fun day to do that, and I ended up with some cool stuff on Instagram, and which led me here. And now I'm like, oh, so it was worth it. The day was worth it,
Yeah.
Hey, just tell people about it, and it's cool. So if people check it out, that'd be great.
And now you have a process down to photograph guitars. So when Fender and Gibson come calling, you've got a process made.
Yeah, actually, there is a guitar player here in Nashville who plays with the Ace Frehley band. And a couple months ago, he was like, "Dude, I've got this really great guitar that I need some pictures of, and I'll call you next week." But we never really hooked up. But at the time, I didn't have this process down, and I'm like, "Okay, well, let's talk about it." Now I'm thinking, well, maybe I got something new, a new way to whatever this guitar looks like that he needs pictures of, and I'm like excited to. I almost want to contact every musician in Nashville that I know and say, "Give me your most interesting instrument for a day, if you
Yeah.
trust me." And I just want to start documenting. It's just there's a wealth of that stuff around here,
Yeah.
and why not? I mean, I'm
That'd be a
like,
fun project.
yeah.
That'd be a real fun project. Yeah.
There's nothing special about the instruments I own. They're not classic. They're not vintage. They just happen to be in style again. It's like back in the '80s, I was the master of like the $500 guitar. You go to Sam Ash Music, you buy a blue Charvel, and you're all set. $500.
Mm.
You know, you know,
I'm giving you a title for this project. You should call it Treasured Axes.
Treasured
There you
Axes.
go. Yeah.
Ooh, all right.
There you go.
You get total credit for that one, Scott.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, Scott, thank you so much for breaking down this photo with me. I've got one more question for you.
Sure.
Or two more, but the first one, what should I have asked you but didn't catch you off guard?
Yeah, what should I have asked you but
Hmm.
didn't? You pretty much asked me some really interesting stuff. Maybe what else do I like to photograph besides guitars and things like that?
All right. What else do you like to photograph?
My favorite stuff to photograph is live music, concerts. And
Nice.
I've been a concert photographer for many, many years. And I used to teach, along with a great concert photographer, Alan Hess, on the West Coast. I used to teach
Hmm.
concert photography workshops at Photoshop World each year. And I'm hopefully going to be shooting pictures of Miles Kennedy soon. He's coming into Nashville, and I work with a bunch of different bands. So that's my favorite thing to do. My second favorite thing to do is travel photography. My previous job, I used to travel all over the world, so I have the travel bug, and I love doing that. And then my third favorite thing is aviation photography. Actually,
Oh,
I
interesting.
love air shows. I used to do a lot of air shows, and I'm a part of what's called ISAP, which is the International Society of Aviation Photographers.
Hmm.
There's a group of people that just know so much about airplanes, so much more than I ever would. But airplanes were like my favorite thing when I was a kid. So just send me to an air show, and I'm a happy person. So kind of a little roundabout thing there.
So what you need to do is travel to some location that's having an air show, and along the way, photograph a band live
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
same location, and
Hey,
then you've got it made.
score. Absolutely.
So where can our listeners connect with you online?
Well, on Instagram, it's my first initial and last name. I'm probably going to do something different soon, but it's SDIUSSA. So at SDUSA on Instagram. That's where I kind of post most of my stuff. Scott Diussa, Diussa photography on Facebook. You can ping me there. If you friend me on Facebook on my personal side, if I don't know you, I'm probably going to let you go because
Hmm.
I just, it's too much to handle. And but I'd rather, if I'm going to talk photography, I want to be, through my photography page or through Instagram. And if you go to scottdiussa.com, that's my website, which I try to keep fairly updated with some of my stuff, but not as much as like the Instagram. Instagram seems to be doing really well. So I post most of my rock and roll and stuff pictures there. The Scott Diussa photography on Facebook is more of anything photography related.
Hmm.
Instagram's a little bit more music.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to the photo breakdown. For the show notes and to see the photo that we shared today and talked about today, visit photobreakdown.com.